Would love that. This is Be Strong Families webinar series, Staying Strong and Positive for Ourselves and Our Children. Hi, Tammy. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Heather. Wonderful to see you, Michelle. And Andrew's in the background helping us out. Hi, Emily from Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, and Rebecca from Port Orchard, Washington. Hi, Tracy. Finny. Some of you are just directing it to all panelists so that when you're listening to me say hi to people, you're like, where are they? I don't see them. I only see Heather. So if you would, and Andrew, so if you would change your two on the chat to all panelists and attendees, then everybody will be able to see what you say, and that will be helpful going forward. Thank you, Tracy. Good job. All right, let's move to today's topic. I'm here again with my friend and colleague and teacher, Yoli Maya. And some of you may remember that she did some webinars early on, like over the summer. And we are delighted to be starting a series with Yoli that takes off from where those webinars left off in terms of the phases, the 5 phases in traditional Chinese medicine and other places. So the name for the series is Accessing Our Emotions, Exploring Rhythm, Time, and the Natural World. And today is the first class, and the first class is on grief as a superpower. So I am your host, Kathy Wolf from Be Strong Families. Yoli is our presenter, and I'm going to turn it over to her really soon, but not before I remind you about the ways to engage. The primary one you are using to introduce yourselves. If you direct the two to all panelists and attendees, then Yoli and I and Andrew will be able to see it, but so will everybody else. And the chat is your way to kind of communicate with each other and to ask questions and to answer questions if Yoli asks questions. And just this is your main way to engage. Also, you are welcome to raise your hand. And if you raise your hand, then the process goes, Andrew will unmute you, and then you'll need to unmute yourself. And you might be wondering, why are people putting I agree in the chat? If you're new, if this is your first one, you might say, like, why are people writing I agree in the chat? And the answer to that is whenever Be Strong Families does anything, we have agreements. And this is in recognition that we are co-creating this safe space together for us all to learn. And we need to observe certain agreements in order for it to be that safe space and people to be able to be vulnerable. So the agreements are speak from your own experience, treat other people the way you want to be treated, and please no multitasking. There's also an unwritten one that says, if you need a moment, take a moment. So if you agree to these agreements, do like all the people who are agreeing and write I agree. And be sure to direct it to all panelists and attendees. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Yoli.
Thank you so much. So welcome to all of you that are joining us on the webinar live, and also welcome to friends that will enjoy this webinar as a recording or both. Like, you're going to watch this webinar and then you're going to go back and you're going to review, because we threw so much out there in one tiny little hour that you're going to go back and review it. That's the idea. That's why these resources are there for you to use. And I will tell you right up in the front, yes, you will have access to the PDF, to the PowerPoint presentations. So it will be in your hands as needed. Deep breath already. So that's actually what I wanted to do, just right in the start before I even situate what we're going to do today anymore, is to just share a little breath with you all, because here we are. Whatever it took for you to come into this space today and be here today, I want to acknowledge that with a shared breath, and us just being able to say whatever we talk or do or inquire or gain knowledge about today. Most importantly, we've gathered here and we're going to share this breath right now. So I want you to find just any comfortable position as you are. You're seated in a chair. I'm seated on the floor right now. I just kind of have my legs extended. I'm not even folded in anything fancy. Just I'm upright, I'm comfortable, I'm supported, and I want to invite us into presencing ourselves, coming into this present moment through the tool of our breath. So make sure that you can breathe, and if what you feel like doing is laying down and breathing, two thumbs up. You are so welcome to do that as well. So if whether you're upright, reclined, side laying, doing some cool legs up the chair version, as you are, just gently, if it feels comfortable for you, gently close your eyes. If it doesn't, you can keep your eyes open. Perhaps you want to just lower your gaze or soften your gaze as if you were looking through your peripheral vision. If you keep your eyes open, just to basically bring yourself into a little bit of felt sense of expansion. And if your eyes are closed, just gently closing the eyes. And don't change anything about your breath. Just find or locate your breath. Just notice that placement, that present moment of the breath. And like a little breath observer, a little breath detective, where is that breath? Again, we're not changing or altering anything just yet. The breath in the chest, middle abdomen, lower abdomen. The breath in the front part of the body, the sides, the back. Notice the length of the inhale, the length of the exhale. And then I want you to notice that there is a space between the breaths. There's a space at the top of the inhale, and there's a space at the bottom of the exhale. Just notice the length of that space without a sense of judgment, just observation. And now let's deepen the breath ever so slightly. Just drop your breath somewhere into the belly. If it's helpful to put your hands near that space, like this reference, the weight of the hands, the presence or heat from the hands, bringing your mind to the belly button and below with like a nice deep belly breath. And as we inhale, we can feel the anatomy of the belly expanding outwards. There's a space between the breaths. With each exhale, the belly melts back into its place, and there's another small space between the breaths. I want you to also feel this breath can expand into the front, it can expand into the sides, and it can expand behind you. And then, should it delight you, just sprinkle just little glitter sprinkles of love onto the abdomen. This is a place where I know my mind loves to practice these inherited systems of body shame. Oh, this belly, these rolls, this gurgling, this just like while you're taking these breaths, could we just shower the belly, the sacred abdomen, the center of the body being, with a little love, a little self love, that this belly is presenting itself as it is today. And one of the things we're going to learn is that this is the junction box in the design of the channel system of the body. All the channels come into this one junction box. The whole body is represented in this belly. And so even if it feels nice to just give this belly a little clockwise rub as we come out of this little breath presencing, just feel this sacred center of the body. What does it feel like to give your belly a little belly rub? So clockwise, we choose clockwise motion, as that is the direction of our descending colon. Right here, right here, and then it goes down. And so we're encouraging good digestion, good support there, good circulation. So I want to make an invitation to your mind as we come out of that little centering. I would like to invite you to treat the informational part of our series. This will be a 5-part series. We have lots of time to introduce concepts and review them. And it is my intention that in each of our sessions, we are going to be so time efficient. We're going to have a little bit of theory, and we're going to have some practice and some relaxation space for processing, or just for relaxing, right? And I want to invite you into the information intake, right? To be in a non-linear fashion. And what I mean by that today is that you have several minds in this body. There is one mind that we definitely overuse, centered in the brain box. And there are more than these 3 that I'm going to name, but just sort of like top 3. We got the brain over here in the brain box, cognitive thinking, and like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but how tired is your mind? Yes. And then we have this very lovely mind centered in the heart space, compassion and empathy and feeling mind, very smart mind, very intelligent mind. And then we have actually the most intelligent mind that is centered in, again, this belly space that I brought your attention to at the end of our breathing. In the Japanese systems, we'll call this the hara, the center space of the body. And this is a junction box for the channel system in the body. And hopefully by the time we make it through our little PowerPoint, you will have a rudimentary, at least introduction to what is this channel system. So yes, in that way, we're going to talk today a little bit of anatomy of the energetics of the body in terms of the East Asian perspective. East Asian medicine East Asian medicine shows up in the form of traditional Chinese medicine, um, as well as classical Chinese medicine. Also shows up in other diasporic forms of traditional medicines of Korea, Korean shamanism, all the way to Japan, and the many healing systems that emerge out of Japan, including their own needlework with acupuncture, shiatsu, hands-on healing, Reiki, energy healing, and then some. It even shows up in everything from martial arts to flower arranging. And that is some of the delight, I would say, of Japanese culture, the sort of saturation of these principles in expressions in life, from cooking to painting, dancing, to martial arts, to the seated silent meditation. All right. So that's our inspiration of how we are going to explore emotions. And part of why I'm inviting you into both taking in information through other brains in this body, because your body mind is highly intelligent. And if we had more invitations and practice into thinking, acting, operating consciously with our body minds, we would have an easier go of accessing our emotions and processing them. What do we get? We get a super backlog of emotional experiences. And there's only so much that this little old brain mind can process. So keep this in mind. Your gut mind, your gut brain, this area of the body sends 30,000 more nerve impulses every day to the brain than the brain does to the gut. So what is actually running the show here? It's actually this gut brain. So I want to invite you during these workshops. This is a wonderful opportunity to practice accessing this gut mind, accessing the brain that's running the systems, actually. And even anatomically, according to the channel system, the anatomy of the channel system, all the channels run through this belly. So just even this act of you loving on this belly, taking those deep breaths and making clockwise circular movements is insanely therapeutic. But we're going to learn even a little bit more. So you already have 3 tools right there to accessing your emotions. Now, the centering of grief. Grief as a superpower. The reason that I want to highlight grief in the whole 5-part series is because from my professional and personal vantage point, number 1 being a human being having an earthly experience, number 2 being an American national at this moment, hailing from also Evanston, Illinois, but a half mile, probably not even a half mile away from Kathy. At this point, I'm literally like right up the street. And as an educator and healer in the professional realms of yoga therapy, shiatsu therapy, East Asian medicine, but I do also practice my family's lineage teachings in Native North American medicine, as well as some Indian schools, so South Asian medicine, Tantra, Native North American teachings, as well as East Asian. I like to bundle it all up into something I call the beauty way, which is basically the harmonizing of the inner and outer nature, right? That like, what's the goal of the practice? What's the purpose? What's the outcome? And that is that we are able to live in symbiosis with the natural world that we are part and parcel of. The same thing that makes up the natural world is what makes up this body. The design of this body is the mirror design of the structure of the natural world, of this fabulous earthly realm that we have the gift of being here. Now, that doesn't make every day easy to traverse, and that doesn't mean we're not presented with obstacles. Often our feelings, our emotions, it's like in this modern context, we are coached in ways that our feelings are a problem. Our emotions are an obstacle to clear thinking. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. And what I have found in my clinical practice, as well as in my own personal meditative and yogic practice, is that when we reframe emotions, first of all, when we allow ourselves access to them, and then when we reframe them as positive things, or even taking something as taboo as grief and reacquainting ourselves with grief as the superpower that it is, we open up a whole new spectrum of our humanity, our ability to embody our humanness. We are not meant to be cold robots. So I didn't even really know about grief as a superpower until I invited grief into my own life. And that did come in the form of, and we can go ahead and progress the slides, that did come in the form of experiences of loss. So let's go to the next slide. Let's see what's there. So it's 5 phases. This is the model that we're going to explore. And of these, you may have seen these explained as elements at some point in time, and we've had some prior sessions where I have introduced the 5 phases as a model. The reason that it's called phases is because these aren't actually the concept. Isn't that these are tangible elements? They are. I mean, I can go outside and grab a handful of dirt and I can say, here's earth. I can pass my hand through a candle and say, there was fire. Ouch. I can go take a nice hot bubbly bath and say, ooh, water, you feel amazing, kind of thing. I can go cut some avocados with metal, right? I can see the trees outside, that's wood. Yes, these exist as physical things. The concept here in the 5-phase model in East Asian medicine is that these are moments in time. So what about, for example, the seasons? Those are moments in time. We know about that because right now we know it's winter, right? And we know that it's cold. And what happens in winter when it gets cold and it goes below freezing? Water freezes, right? And so we have this sort of like imagery of winter in, say, the frozen waterfall. Ooh, have you ever seen a picture of a frozen waterfall? Like it's beautiful. It's amazing. It's like, wow, nature's design. It's awe-inspiring. So, for example, the seasons. Well, I said winter. So winter is water. And then winter opens up into spring, which is wood. And spring evolves into summer, fire. And then we have late summer, harvest season, earth. And then we come into fall, autumn is metal. And each of these phases has correspondences. Whether it is a feeling, an emotion, a time of day, a body part, a sound, a flavor, a color, what East Asian system has done is create whole charts of correspondences. And we can use these correspondences to better understand this body and to better understand this body in the various cycles of nature. So last thing I'll say on this slide is grief. Where does grief sit in this? Grief is akin to metal, the metal phase. So, for example, the autumn season. What is that grand display of colors? And here in the Midwest, we had an incredible autumn with so many colors, and because we had enough water for the trees to have just a really beautiful display of color. But what is that? It's actually nature's grand display of grief, of death, of loss. What's happening in that moment? Those trees are turning inwards for the grand sleep of winter, the hibernation of winter, right? And so, isn't that interesting that nature gives us such a colorful, celebratory display that is actually a celebration of grief? Right? So these are the kind of the fun things that happen when we start to take something that has turned into a taboo. Oh, grief and its expression should be hidden. Grief should be brief. Grief should be something that you get over. Or what about something more like trauma informed or intergenerational trauma, right? That grief is a danger. To give in to grief means you've lost your alertness of survival, right? This is some ancestral business, right? That we have inherited, that were systems that kept our ancestors alive at the time, but these aren't things that serve us right now. So the last reason I wanted to center grief in this whole series is because I see that collectively we are experiencing a backlog of processing grief at the moment, and we need tools. We need the tool of acceptance to pull this out of the taboo. We need literal tools of how to engage and access our emotions through movement, through breath, through restfulness, through meditation, right? Through ritual, through expression, through vocalization. And we are doing some pretty serious collective grieving at the moment, whether that be inspired by the extreme contraction of being stuck in a pandemic, lockdown environments, and also in the upheaval of uprising, especially in the Black Lives Matters movement, the movement for Black and Brown solidarity, the movement for Indigenous sovereignty, and I also want to call in the movement for food sovereignty. Right? So we're doing a lot of work all at once. It's overload. So it's my invitation to you all that what we'll do in this series is learn tools and put them into action, and that you will have the resources and references to be able to do that. Okay, next slide, please. So grief. Grief is like the ocean. It comes in waves, ebbing and flowing. Sometimes the water is calm and sometimes it is overwhelming. All we can do is learn to swim. This is Vicki Harrison's word. Now, we've been presented, let's go to the next slide. We have been presented with a very linear structure of grief. Okay, at least this one gives us a bit of a wave kind of thing. But like so much of our emotions put in the context of they're linear. They emerge, there's something to get through, and then we're through them, and they are just, and now they're gone. But from Indigenous perspective, from Native perspective, from Earth-based perspective, that could not be farther from the truth. So why I want to use the 5-phase model for us to have a model to work through is because it has a cyclical component to it. Grief, like all emotions, are cyclic. Just like that quote shared, there's a sense of ebb and flow. It rises, it falls. And even this image kind of gives us this sense of, okay, there's an entry point to grief. And this is like your real classic 5 stages of grief right here. There's an entry point, there's lower points, and then there's also higher points where we're able to come into acceptance. In the 5-phase model, we'll see our entry point being metal, But then we're going to also explore in each of these sessions the wood of metal, the earth of metal, the water of metal, the fire of metal. Because in that model, all those elements are present in each other, interwoven, right? So we'll explore today grief as a superpower, tone setting, and then we'll move on to the anger of grief, the worry of grief, the sadness of grief, and the joy of grief. And you can see something similar here in this wave concept, right? That we have feelings words. What I really want us to pay attention to are actually the feelings words underneath these. The feelings that come along with denial, with anger, with bargaining, with depression, with sadness. And then as we arise, this potentiality, and if you attended the last webinar where we talked about the axis, AXIS, axis of fear and joy, that they are a spectrumed experience that is foundationally and fundamentally the design of the human form itself. It's our central axis, is this fear joy axis. So, wow, there's a potential for the joy of grief. And so I like that. I like that idea that acceptance feels cool. Like I like acceptance, but I also like the idea of celebration. I like the idea of ritual celebration, of expression, right? That we can arrive there. But keep in mind, that's not the goal. Just even like this, it's not the goal per se to just get to acceptance or to use this brainy mind to fast forward like, nope, I've accepted this loss. Okay, the loss doesn't necessarily have to be death of a person or a loved one. It can be the loss of your freedom to move about in the world. It can be your loss of social interaction. It can be the loss of your job, right? We experience loss frequently as part of our cyclic existence, right? So we're going to keep on this, keep embellishing this conversation. Let's go to the next slide. So just coming back to this, what I want to just introduce here and reiterate are two ways of using this 5-phase model. And you'll see the notes at the bottom. One is called the creation cycle and one is called the control cycle. And so what I described when I said the anger of grief, the worry of grief, that's shown in the relationships, that little kind of 5-pointed star that comes up when we're illustrating the control cycle. And no, this isn't a webinar specifically on the philosophy of traditional Chinese medicine. I'm just using this to put out some nonlinear concepts, some visual tools, and a language of the natural world that we can work with in the context of accessing our emotions. So we have these 5 phases, these 5 moments in time: earth, metal, water, wood, and fire. And each of those have correspondences, and that includes the network channels of the body. So let's go to the next slide. I gave you a reference chart for some of these correspondences. This is fun. This will be part of your homework. Just kind of look this over. Something I want to highlight under metal today as you go. So 2 things. Number 1 is right at the top, the yang and yin meridians, or the channels that are associated with metal, are lung and large intestine. Those channels live here. So the lung channel coming down, inner surface to the thumb, the yang channel of the large intestine at the index finger coming up, and then that actually comes all the way up here, just to the side of the nose is the track of this channel. So check it out. Both these channels are on either side of the upper arm, and we can think, let's say I want to bring circulation to this area, just thinking intuitively. Do you think the movement to open up this channel would be to close this in, or to open this chest area and the arms up? So just using your own body wisdom logic, right? That what happens when we're grieving? What happens when we're sad? What happens? We curl up in a fetal position. It's intuitive to close off this channel and bring it in, right? Do we, when we're really having like a really good cry, do we cry like this? Ah, yeah, nope. Not usually, but I want you to try it out the next time you're having a really good cry and just see what happens. No, usually we come into a natural body response where we really cover up, and the motion is constriction or contraction. So when we want to get energy, life force energy in the form of chi or ki moving in the body, that area where this channel resides needs to get opened up, stretched, activated. We also know that just breathing into this space, even just a gentle pounding and bringing blood flow to the chest, is something that can start opening up this channel space. Okay, so we're not going too deep into like, what are these channels, lung, large intestine. I think just one little thing I'll say about channels is that they include the organ. So the channel includes the organ, but what's a little bit confusing, for example, is, yes, my lung is right here. My lung channel is right here. I get it. That one is like, okay, my large intestine is down here. The channel is up here. So this is your energy body. This is one map of the energy body. So it's not an exact correlation that your heart channel means like, uh-oh, something's wrong with my heart organ. That's diagnostic, and that's not how this system works. So remove that from your stressors, right? And get a little bit more generalized, a little bit more kind of fluffy and expanded, okay? And then I want to draw your attention to, so we did season, right? Is autumn or fall. And and there's colors and tastes and senses and this is and that's. And I want to bring you down to emotion, the emotion of grief. And the expression is weeping. So one of the best ways to access grief and process it is through the action of crying, of weeping, of letting ourselves experience cycles of sorrow. And again, that brings me back to this 5-phase model. Why I want to use this as the teaching tool is because it helps us reimagine our emotions as cycles of ebb and flow. Remember, ebb and flow, the tides is controlled by the moon, is controlled by a cycle, right? Like everywhere we look in nature, we will see this pattern replicated. Cycles, cycles, cycles. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, I wanted to give you a map, not to overwhelm you, but to delight you with color. And so this is a map of these channel systems in the body. This is how we use them in shiatsu, in hands-on body work that utilizes the ebb and flow of energy, life force energy in the channels. Yep, I could show you the channels of the lung and large intestine here. If this is stuff that you want to know more about, there are any number of ways of studying Chinese medicine, traditional or classical in this world, and certainly online, that is for sure. What I want to bring your attention to here with this fun visual is look at the belly. Okay, so remember how I said all the channels merge in the belly space. So what these images are showing you, both the belly and the back body, this is your center. This is your junction box. We can access everything from here. All the channels, all the things. So I wanted you to just have some pictures in your mind of when I'm saying the channel system, I am talking about this meridian chart. When I'm drawing the channels on the body, this is a reference for that. And I also just love things that are colorful. And so here's the colorful expression of this body. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And this will be, we'll take this slide in and then we'll actually do these practices. So what we will do over the 5 classes is we will build a little tiny practice for ourselves in the form of these 5 elemental stretches, these 5 phase stretches. And in this case, the image that I took off the internet for us calls this the makoho stretches. Same things all there. What we're doing in these stretches, and I'm going to show some variations as well, is activating those channels, moving chi or ki. Those words are synonymous. They're synonyms for life force energy or the energy of animation, right? Moving through the channels, okay? And then what this little practice turns into is a nice little balancing practice that could take 5 minutes for you to move through. And now some of you might be looking at a couple of these being like, I don't know, especially that earth move, Yoli, that one's looking a little tough. Don't worry. We have lots of variations, okay? And we're going to do them one at a time. And then in each class, we'll tack them on, right? And we'll repeat them. So what we're going to do today is stand up, okay? So we've been sitting for a hot minute. We're going to stand up. And as you stand up, feel free to allow yourself to emit whatever sounds need to go along with you standing up. And what I want you to do is bend your knees a little, have the feet on the floor, and you're just going to shake. And yeah, when we do this little shaking, you have to kind of let your jiggly bits jiggle and just let them jiggle wiggle around. Okay, so my knees are bent, my feet are on the floor, and what I'm doing is letting sort of a little bounce back, for lack of a better description, but it really does encompass like what this is, that you're really relaxed and you're just letting this wiggle kind of go through places in the body, and then just feel there'll be some places that feel a little bit like stuck, like that jiggle's not getting in there, right? And so sometimes I'll do this and I'll feel that on the side of my neck, and so I'll just kind of give a light little stretch, nothing too crazy, and just kind of get some of that wiggle in there. And what we're doing is circulating fluid in fluid spaces in the body. Those fluid spaces are your channels. They are the same structure. Your fascial structure of the body is your channel system. That channel system is filled with fluid, interstitial spaces filled with fluid, and that fluid carries nutrients. So when we have free flow of chi in the body, that means that we are moving nutrients. We are nutrified or nourished. So yeah, we're still bouncing because we want to do this for about a minute. We want to get this into the joint spaces, and we want to get this all through the body and all through the organs and all through our fascial system. So just a little bit more of this bouncing, and everything's really relaxed. And next time you're at the gas station pumping gas, you can do this for a minute. And now just slow down and come to a stop. And I want you to feel it. My knees are still bent. I'm nice and soft. My hips are relaxed. Take a belly breath. Just feel there's this tingling movement flow throughout the body. And let's do this first stretch. And so this is for lung and large intestine. So what we can do, these are all options. We can interlace the thumbs, fold the fingers. Remember I said this large intestine channel runs up like this? So it's really just about getting this sort of felt stretch through the index fingers. And then that comes behind you. And you stretch through the index fingers, breathe in, and we take a little forward fold. Now this is not yoga. You're not trying to achieve some end result. The end result is what you feel. So wherever your arms sometimes my hands are like resting on my hips, my low back, but I just get that little stretch through my fingers. And then breathe into the chest. I also invite you to bend your knees. Keep everything nice and soft. Okay, now let's say we had a challenge to reach behind and grab our hands. And so I didn't even prepare anything. Like I would probably grab a sock or a towel. But today, what I found was a leather glove. And so I'm just going to bring that behind me, right? But maybe I need more space. Okay, now I have a towel or something, and I have that behind me. And I breathe in. A yoga strap would be something, more formal. And I take that forward fold, and I breathe. And I breathe into my chest, and I breathe into my arms. And I breathe and breathe. And what we want to do is inhale and come back up. And then if you have had your thumbs together, just switch the orientation of your thumbs, pushing through the index finger and go forward one more time. So we're holding a little bit longer at the moment. But we would go ahead and come back up to standing, breathe in as you come up. And now just take your mind to the chest, to the shoulders, and just see, even like this part of the neck and up to the face. And just observe, what do we feel in that space right now? What we might like to feel, sense of openness, a little bit of flow. And remember the tingling from when we did the bouncing? Maybe some of that tingling, that activation and flow of fluid in fluid spaces. Maybe the breath is a little freer. Maybe you're just more tuned into what's happening here. And since we're standing, let's do a few hip circles together. Just bring this kind of back down into our hara space, into our belly space. Circles, knees are bent. Nice and comfortable circles in the opposite direction. I haven't done any circles today. A little tight in there. How about circles in figure 8? Figure 8. Side to side. You got to keep those knees bent. Push your bum out behind you. Nice little bend in the knees. Relax the shoulders as you do this. And coming back to the center, just little ankle circles. And if you wanted to hold a chair for stability, I've got my imaginary chair right here. Circles and opposites. So we're just bringing kind of this energy and awareness back down into the body. Also helping to ground ourselves. So circles in the opposite leg. A little bit of up and down. Okay. I want to invite you to come back into a relaxed position. If you could lay down, that would be fabulousness. If you're seated in a chair, I want to make sure that you're really, really comfortable. Could be something simple, like just on the floor, knees bent, so that the low back is relaxed. And I want us to practice a breath here that helps us come into relaxed state. So breathing in for a count of 3 and breathing out for a count of 3. So breathing in 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Breathing out 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. So long count of 3. Breathing in 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Breathing out 1,000, 2, 1,000. One more round like this. And exhaling 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. And now as you keep this rhythm going, you might hear a little instrumentation sound in the background. As you keep this breath moving, I want you to extend the exhale 1 count. So inhale 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Exhale count of 4. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. Little space. Inhale 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Space. Exhale 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. Okay, so inhale count of 3, exhale count of 4. Take a couple rounds. A couple of rounds of this breath, and what I want you to notice is that as you breathe in this way where you extend the exhale, you might start to get a few yawns, a little bit of water, saliva in the mouth. Also possible that in that release response, anybody's thinking back to our previous presentation that gave us a little introduction on polyvagal theory, in that relaxation response, you may find that the eyes also start to water. That weeping isn't just the act of crying. It is the softness of release. The release into relaxation. And as you continue with this breath, this short form of relaxation here, I want to share a little poem with you. A little opportunity for reflection. Continuing with your breath. When you lose someone you love, your life becomes strange. The ground beneath you gets fragile, the thoughts make your eyes unsure, and some dead echo drags your voice down where words have no confidence. Your heart has grown heavy with loss, and though this loss has wounded others too, no one knows what it has taken from you when the silence of absence deepens. Flickers of guilt kindle regret for all that was left unsaid or undone. There are days when you wake up happy, again, inside the fullness of life, until the moment breaks and you are thrown back onto the black tide of loss. Days when you have your heart back, you are able to function well until in the middle of work or encounter, suddenly with no warning, you are ambushed by grief. It becomes hard to trust yourself. All you can depend on now is that someone will remain faithful. Sorrow will remain faithful to itself. More than you, it knows its way and will find the right time to pull the rope of grief until that coiled hill of tears has reduced to its last drop. Gradually, you will learn acquaintance with the invisible form of your departed, and when the work of grief is done, the wound of loss will heal, and you will have learned to wean your eyes from that gap in the air, and to be able to enter the hearth in your soul where your loved one has awaited your return all the time. And this is A Blessing on Grief by John O'Donohue. I invite you to take a last breath here and to bring yourself into a possibility. Still a little possible, something possible, a wish, a whisper, and that is that grief could be an experience that fortifies us in such a way that it is a superpower. And our exploration of such a thing, and we can just go to that last little slide. And our exploration of such a thing does not end here. This is our beginning. Knowing that this body is the beginning, the middle, and the conclusion of our effort. And we will continue to explore and resource ourselves over the next few weeks. Our sessions will run bi-weekly. Every other week we'll return to this space all the way through March. And that excites me. So I will look forward to you all coming back and sharing your thoughts and questions. We've already popped up the ending poll here, but if it moves you, I would love to hear just a little something you're leaving the space with today. You could pop that into the chat. And you can feel free to contact me through my contact information that is shared with that Be Strong is going to share with you as well. Thank you very much for your attendance today. And I hand this back over to my friend Kathy.
Thank you so much, Jolie. Just want to remind everyone we'll be here tomorrow, Vicarious Trauma, Vicarious Resilience. And then Alexandra and I are going to be holding space for conversation on Wednesday about survivor's guilt and thriving during the pandemic. Ebony Torres will be here on Thursday for prevention of cancer and chronic conditions during challenging times. And then Carol Mizuguchi is going to be with us again this Friday talking about an equity audit. Well, she's going to share with us equity audit tools to advance racial equity, diversity, and inclusion in your organization. So please join us whenever you can. And like Yoli was saying, what would you like to amplify coming out of this webinar, this workshop? What did you feel? What did you learn? So just in the chat, if you could just put hashtag amplify relaxation, hashtag amplify grief as a superpower, or something just more feeling oriented. How do you feel? Tammy says hashtag amplify peace. What else? What do you want to amplify? Remember to wear your mask, and we have some great ones. This is Andrew, who's our tech support person, with his wife Michelle, who is an ICU nurse in Minnesota. And the masks are comfortable and beautiful and express values. So please wear a mask, and if you feel so inclined, get one of ours. Hashtag amplify awareness. Hashtag amplify grief as a superpower. And again, if you or one of your colleagues would like to host a webinar with us, contact me. I'm open and I will make it happen. So thank you again, Yoli, for being here. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. And that's with anger, right? Is it the
anger of grief? Yes.
the anger of
shouting?
What, Cindy? What?
I said we can do some shouting.
Yeah, how about that? Awesome. Well, until then, or until next time, just want to wish you all a wonderful afternoon, evening, night, and we'll see you soon. Thank you very much for being here.